Good morning. We will continue our learning in Hemshech Samach, but sadly, I want to dedicate this class firstly to the tragic murder of Rabbi Eli Schlanger in Sydney. Literally today, the first day of Hanukkah, tonight, the first day of Hanukkah there. And they're asking everyone to say Tehillim for the others that were attacked, terrorist attack, literally. Let me just say their names, if I may. Their Hebrew names are Yonatan ben Sapora, Yaakov Dov ben Penina, Chaya Bashter Nasara, Yehudalei ben Manya, Yaakov ben Ethel, Arsen ben Zoya, Yaakov Halevi ben Miriam, Dovber ben Talia, Moshe ben Binyamin, Moshe Yonatan ben Sapora, Toba bat Fega, Ilan ben Ira, Faivel Eliezer ben Dobra Bella, Shem Yinkum Dama, I guess he was killed there. Ilan ben Shimshon, Shoshana bat Minet, and Levi Zev ben Elisheva Rachel. It's horrific enough, this death, and now just this long list. God should protect them all and heal them all, and I don't even know what to say. Horrible. But we add light, we learn, and there's chus. And Hashem Yishmar, God should protect Yidden everywhere, and we should, entering into Hanukkah, what can I say? Hanukkah, light within darkness. Let me just, 1 second, I want to just, the setup here, I have to fix something, and we'll start the learning. 1 second, please. Okay. So, we are on page 13 of Hemshech Samach Vav. Essentially, the last thing we learned was Klolas Inyanhu. As he began the new paragraph on page 11, Klolas Inyan of what we accomplished through our avodah in this world, this lowest of worlds, Tachtenim, that through Torah Mitzvos, we draw down. He said, Mitzvah kolam shachas edin sob ba'elamis. Abya is totally became a mitzvahs. That the Amshach V'Ein Sof in existence is dependent on mitzvahs. And he brought a few psukim, Im b'chukei telechu, v'hoyim shamaya tishmu, and asked the question, well, the fact is that there is a energy of the divine energy within existence independent of our mitzvahs. And God affirmed that after the Mabul, by giving us the covenant, the Bris HaKeshes of the rainbow, that he would never disrupt and destroy existence. So that's a fact, even without any mitzvahs. So his answer was, that is the minimal energy. Certain amount of energy that God promised, yes, that he invested into existence to keep it, maintaining it. Like he says, that in a form of it's even mitzumsum. That's the language he used. So that is certain that amount, that there will never be a complete destruction of the universe. So there's always a certain amount of energy that will flow into it. I'm reading on top of page 12. However, that's kavamida. That's a very measured flow, very limited flow of a kadeshi year. Nimshach tesus er v'shefa chadasha yeser mekfi amida haktsuva. So who's the bekvar b'sei d'shtalsus? Sakrisus brisana. But in order to draw down additional energy, more than just the minimum. I mean, just to use an example, for instance, God forbid a human being can be in a comatose state, they're alive, but it's bare minimum energy that we wouldn't call that fully being alive. This is also discussed when it comes Shabbos, and especially Rosh Hashanah, that the world, the energy of existence recedes, only to be renewed for chodosh. So yes, it's a minimal amount of energy, and you could call it energy, but it's in a very low state. He doesn't use that example here, and obviously it's not necessarily the best example, but just to point out, you could have energy in a very limited way. But to have an Oiver Shefa Chadasha, more than that measured for existence, that's dafka through Kiyam Torah Mitzvos. And that's what he's saying, B'chukesei Telechu, that we, through Mitzvos, we draw down much more energy, Teisvose Meruba La'ikar, and that additional is not just more, it's actually it overshadows the original energy. It's much more than the original one. And he brings it also in the proof from the Gan Eden that Adam and Chava were placed in Gan Eden, la'ovdo l'shamra, to work and protect, in order to make Gan Eden far more abundant than the Gan Eden that Vayita Hashem Elikim. Even though Gan Eden is a higher level than the rest of existence, it's still Hashem Elikim, not just Elikim, but it's still limited to some extent. And nevertheless, through Aveda we go even beyond that, and that's the pasuk Yizbu Atse Havaya Shanota, that there's the Atse Havaya, the trees of God, basically. That's the Gan Eden on its own. And the Yizbu is that which comes through the Aveda of Torah and Mitzvos. And with that, he came to explain, and that's what we're in the middle of now. What is it? Why does it say at the end of some of the parshas in the Torah, Ani Hashem, Ani Havaya? What is it coming to add? Especially knowing that Havaya is beyond us. It's not Begili Mamish. So why does the Torah tell us, Ani Hashem, I am God, I am Havaya? So he began to explain this, and this is what we're in the middle of. Let me just sum up what we learned. I'm reading at the bottom of page 12 and the top of 13 now. The Hamshachas Ir Chodosh, that in general Havaya is the way the channels, the way God structured the flow of Eid Ein Sof goes through Havaya. The four letters indicate four stages in any flow, in any transmission. It begins with a point, first spark. Everything has to start with a point. That point expands into a hey, from Chachma to Bina. That hey, a vav is a channel that transmits and carries it, all the way to the hey achrena, the last hey, which is the hey of the makabel. He doesn't spell it out exactly here, but it's usually malchus, with the vav being zah or midas. So it'd be Chachma Bina, the midas, the six midas is the vav, and then malchus. He doesn't mention zah and malchus for whatever reason, but he does say the four stages, what he calls nekuda, tzimtzum, hispashtus, hamshacha, v'hispashtus. Every flow from one state to another goes through these four stages. That's all levels. That's both the minimal energy that creates existence and also the energy that flows through mitzvahs. The mitzvahs that add energy also goes through this Havaya. That the kav also, which is the kav is the line, the thread, the kav chut that carries the divine energy after the tzimtzum, that it also is structured into four stages. And that's where we stopped. We are on the sixth line of page 13, and I'll continue now reading. We continues talking about this flow through Havaya to come to explain what is Ani Havaya, and of course, ultimately to explain how the new energies. Remember earlier we learned that when we do mitzvahs and Torah mitzvahs, and we bring a Chodosh, it doesn't bypass Seder Shtalshus. It travels and integrated and internalized Seder Shtalshus. So it's in the same pipelines. However, it's drawing a whole new level of energy. So now he continues on the sixth line. If you have the Sefarim, great. If not, you can follow along at samachvav.com. All these pages have been scanned, PDFs, which you can print out. You can look at your phone. You can, as you see fit. And regardless, even if you're not following the text, everything will be explained. So rest assured, you don't have to be worried that you don't have a text in front of you. Okay. Ubederach prat. Now, again, the sixth line from the top of page 13. And more specifically, Yesh b'chol shefa prati b'chin Hashem Havaya. So in B'derech Klal, all the Hamshachas, Havaya is the four stages, Yud K, Vav K. That's why you find Havaya throughout the whole Seder Shtalshlus. There's Havaya in Atzilus, and Havaya in Chachma, and Havaya in Bina. But that's in general. It's a general flow, like I brought the Kav. The Kav is the main artery that draws divine energy into existence, so it's divided into four. Now he's going to explain that in each sphere, in each specific detail, you also have Havaya. This is based on the fundamental principle that you hear always, macrocosm, microcosm. Everything is Seder Shtalshlus that's in macrocosm, you can find in microcosm. Like we talk about the spheres, there are 10 spheres, but then there are 10 spheres in each one of the 10 spheres. There's 4 worlds, Atzilus, Bria, Atzilus, and there's 4 in each one of them. This is a rule across the board, because we're not dealing here with physical entities, we're dealing here with essentially archetypes. And because it all comes from one Hashem, obviously they all are encompass each other. The difference is, Bina within Chachma is primarily Chachma that includes also Bina within it. Bria within Atzilus is primarily Atzilus. Chesed within Gvura, etc. So, but they all include each other. So he's now going to say that this general Havaya that goes from the Tzimtzum, which would be the Tzimtzum Harishon, would be the Yud. The Kav then would be, let's say, the Vav. Well, I don't want to go into that right now. That's a little complicated. But basically, in the Kav, you have all 4. You have an Akuda, like he said, Tzimtzum, Hispashtus, Hamshacha, Hispashtus. So now he's going to explain that in each specific level of Seder Shtalshlus, you also have all 4. B'chol shefa er proti b'chin Hashem Havaya. Yes, b'chol shefa proti b'chin Hashem Havaya. Kamoi b'er ha'chachma. Like when you talk about the light, the energy of Chachma. So you have Chachma nimshach Shem Havaya b'mili Yudin. So Shem Havaya there is the mili of Yudin. Let me explain what that means. You remember we've discussed in previous classes. In Ayin Beis, I mentioned it. I'm sorry, Samach Vov, I mentioned it briefly, but I'll go over it again just for clarity purposes. Shem Havaya, as I said, we know is the main. It's called the Shem HaEtzem, the core name, the Shem HaMefedish, the Shem HaEtzem, Shem HaMefedish, Shem HaKodesh. It's considered of all the names of Hashem, it's the highest name, Havaya. There's the other 7 names. There's Elikim, there's Kael, there's Tzvokes, Shaddai. But Havaya is considered to be the all-encompassing name. So Havaya has many aspects to it. Besides the Yud Kei Vav Kei, it also has, like all Hebrew letters in the Hebrew alphabet, carry with them a lot of messages. There's the letters themselves. There's the shape of the letters. There's the number of each letter. Like Yud is 10. Hey is 5. One second, please. Getting a message here. I want to make sure this doesn't. I don't know what this is. Okay. So there's the number. There's also the shape of the letters. Like we're talking about here. Yud is a dot. Hey is expanded. Vav is a line. And there's more. If you look in Shayachad V'Amunah, when he talks about the Eisius, the Chav Beis Eisius, there's the 22 Hebrew letters of the Hebrew alphabet Hashem creates. He brings there Chilufim, Tmuris, Gematria. So the Hebrew alphabet is more than just letters that form words. Every letter has in it layers and layers of them and dimensions. So one of the things in a Hebrew letter is also called a milui. A milui, it means literally what fills in. For example, a yud, which we're going to discuss now, a yud. So a yud is one letter, a letter yud, that looks like a dot. Obviously, when you look at a yud that's written in the Sefer Torah, it's more than just a dot. It has a kaitz above, a point below. But essentially, it's a dot compared to other letters. But when you spell it out, yud, when I just say yud, it has, when you pronounce it, yud vav dalet. So the milui is the pronunciation of the letter. So it's more than just a letter yud. It also has a vav and a dalet. That's called a milui. Aleph is aleph lamed fei. That's why I say aleph. Beis yud sof. So every letter, when you spell it out, you actually are saying more than just a letter. So it's still a beis, it's still a aleph, it's still a yud, but the yud is consistent of yud vav dal. It's called milui. In Kabbalah, well, it's also, you find it also in the Gemara and a Chazal. They talk about a milui. That's why sometimes you talk about the letter itself is 10, but yud with the milui is 20, because vav and dalet adds up to 6 plus 4 plus the 10, so it's altogether 20. So if you want to say yud b'miluyoi, that's an expression you'll find especially in Kabbalistic books. That's 20. The yud is 10, the vav is 6, and then the dalet is 4. Now, so Havaya can be written in many different ways. For example, yud ke vav ke. So yud is always going to be yud vav dalet. But what about hey? How do you write a hey? A hey you could write 3 ways. You could do hey aleph. That's a hey. That adds up to 6. You could write hey hey. That's also a hey. That's 10. You could write hey yud. That's 15. All of them pronounce the hey. So in the Sifrei Kabbalah, the Kabbalists explain that the Havaya itself, because it's a central artery, as I mentioned, of drawing down all the divine energy, so the different miluyim serve different functions. So the Spheris, this is taken mostly from they break it here from I see Paradis, Eitz Chaim, different places where this is explained. If you want to look it up in the sources, just look at footnote 171, I believe. Yeah. Well, 1 second, not 171. That's 167. I'm sorry. Footnote 167. The Paradis will come afterwards. 167, you see Eitz Chaim, my mother from the Alter Rebbe. Okay. So now when we get to the Spheris, so the Kabbalah, when they explain a Sphira, they explain in the context of Havaya, they'll say Chochmah is the Yud, is the Havaya b'milui Yudin. Meaning, the Yud always is 20. But the Hey is written with Hey Yud, and the last Hey is also Hey Yud. And the Vav is Vav Yud Vav. You could write Vav Aleph Vav, you could write Vav Vav. There's 2 ways to write the Vav. There are 3 ways to write a hey. A yud is only 1 way. So these are, when you hear the expressions, you have shem ma, shem ban, shem sag, and shem ab, or sometimes all 4 together, ma, ban, sag, and ab. They're basically numerical equivalents, where shem ma is yud ke vav ke b'milei alfin. So if you add up yud and a hey, and a vav with an aleph, and a hey with an aleph, you're going to end up having 45. If you do it with a yud, all of them with yuds, it'll have 72. And the other 2, the 52 and the 63 of ban and sag, is based on milei heyin and different combinations. I'm not going to go into all the details right now, but bottom line, those names, when you say Shem Ma Gematria Odam, Shem Ma is Havaya b'milei heyin, b'milei alfin, sorry. Ab is which here he says is Chochmah, is Havaya b'milei Yudin. So the Hey is a Yud, which makes it 15. The last Hey is a Yud, another 15, 30, plus 20 from the 50 from the Yud, and then you add the Vav Yud Vav is another 10, 22. And there you have 72. So bottom line is that what he's saying, so now let's go inside. What does he say? He says, so so he doesn't spell it out because he's not really going into the details. He just wants to point out how Havaya exists. Remember, he's coming to explain Ani Havaya. So he wants to explain how Havaya exists both in the general macrocosm, the flow of the 4 levels, Simsum Ispashtus, Amshach Ispashtus, so too in each level prati, like he said, B'chol Shefa, prati, you also have Shem Havaya. Like in Eira Chochmah, Shem Havaya is a particular Shem Havaya, b'milei Yudin. U'b'chesed, B'chol Amidus, b'milei Alfin. When it comes to Chesed, and all the middays, there Havaya is on a lower level, it's with only an Aleph, not a Yud, which means it's a lower number. So it's b'mili alpha. Mili alpha meaning the Hay's are written with an aleph, and the Vav is written with an aleph. So now let's take this back to what mitzvahs accomplish. We said before that mitzvahs add that the flow of divine energy that comes through Havaya, without mitzvahs is a minimal flow. With mitzvahs, it's an abundant flow. Taste for Seder. So he says now, like this. The Kamoi Kain, so too, mitzvahs. Going back to the point that he wants to discuss here. So too, this new energy that is drawn and transmitted through Torah and mitzvahs, more than the energy of existence on its own, that new energy also flows through the four letters of Havaya. Because that's how the air is drawn to be an internalized, integrated air. Remember, the goal is Adir B'Tachtenim is not just to have a new, unprecedented level of Atzmus Eir Ein Sof, but that should be internalized and integrated into existence. So how does that happen? That happens because it's channeled through Mamala Kalam and through the Kav, and namely through Shem Havaya. So the Yud Kei Vav Kei serves as the channels for all forms of energy as it flows through Ishtalshlus. The minimal energy of existence and now the additional energy that comes through mitzvahs. So this will explain why we say there's an expression you see in the footnote 168. He brings the source in Priya Etz Chaim. There's an expression mitzvahs are dependent on, or teluyim is not really dependent. I should say the mitzvahs are connected to. I mean, teluyim usually means dependent on, but here teluyim means more totally like they hang on. They are derivatives, or they are, that's not the right word either. They are connected with the four letters of Shem Havaya. Now, what does that mean? Is different mitzvahs connect to different letters. You have mitzvahs that connect to the Yud, to the Hey, to the Vav, K. He doesn't go into detail. He just makes the statement, and he gives the footnote, elaborates, if you want to look at the elaboration. Again, it's not relevant to the theme here. He just wants to point out the connection of mitzvahs to Havaya. And another thing, U'kamoy Kain, yes, Shem Havaya b'chol mitzvah. Another thing, besides that the mitzvahs are tluyim in Havaya, and different mitzvahs connected to different letters in Havaya, the Shem Havaya in general can be found in every mitzvah. And here he gives another footnote from Tikkunei Zayar. If you want to understand what this means more in detail, I'm not going to go into it because it's not, again, just making the statement in order to explain Shem Havaya's connection to mitzvahs. So the Shem Havaya is in each mitzvah, which is one of the reasons when we say a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kiddushanu. So mitzvahs of Itzivanu, mitzvahs they all have Havaya within them. The Hainu, why is that the case? Because Havaya is lefisha hamshacha be'ezem madrega shenimshach. Because the hamshacha, the transmission, any level that transmits, kamoya de mitzvahs tefillin. I take an example, mitzvahs tefillin nimshach teisu said b'bchinas hamechin. So since every mitzvah is being mamshech a particular air, like mitzvahs tefillin is mamshech teis v'seir, remember teis v'seir, because there's moichin before there's mitzvahs. Moichin is a level that God created in Ishtalshlus, chachma bina das. So what does a mitzvah do that moichin doesn't have? It adds teis v'seiris. Ukahai gavna b'chol mitzvahs, and so too with all the mitzvahs. So any hamshacha, and that's what mitzvahs do, they draw down divine energy, tefillin into meichin, and the same thing with all the mitzvahs. Now, and how do they do it? They do it through Havaya. That's why mitzvahs are totally in Shem Havaya, and there's Havaya in every mitzvah. So now he's going to explain why the pasuk says in the end of some of the parshas, Ani Havaya. Omnom. Now, however, being that this is not just a regular amshacha coming from mitzvahs. Omnom li is the amshachim mebchinas atzmos ein sof. Remember, mitzvahs are drawing down energy, higher than the regular Mamala Kalaman that's measured and tailored to existence. It's drawing down a new energy that was not yet ever transmitted from the emanator. What came from the emanator, from the Maitzil, was the minimal energy, but tzimtzum, that the Kav HaMidah carries into all of existence. Now through mitzvahs, we're drawing down something new. Al zeh omar ani Hashem. That's why the Pasha concludes in these places, I am Havaya. Pirush, what does that mean? Ani refers to Eir HaKeser. This is referring to the energy and light of Keser, which is higher than the structure of the spheres. Shenikra Ayin. That's why Ani is the same letters like Ayin, a level of Bittel. Shenikra Ayin. Again, he gives us the source for that in the Pardes. Ubchinas Ani. So the Pasuk is saying, this level of Keser, which is higher than Ishtalshalus, well, higher than the structure of Ishtalshalus, Ani Meir B'Shem Havaya Chodosh Ayidei Kol Mitzvah. So the Ani Havaya is not just saying, I am God. What's it coming to add? It's coming to say, now that we just mentioned the mitzvah. So now Ani Havaya, I'm telling you that Ani from Keser is being nimshach into Havaya and Er Chodosh. Ani Meir B'Shem Havaya Chodosh Ayidei Kol Mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is adding something new, a new level of Havaya. She'ein ze b'chinas Havaya shenimshach mekfar ba'elemis b'seder ishtalshlus. The Ani Havaya is coming to say, this is not the Havaya that we already know. For example, Gan Eden is already Havaya. But that's the Havaya that's measured in a structured way. This is not the level of Havaya. That's what the Ani Havaya is coming to add. That now we're talking about mitzvahs, it's coming to add a new level of Havaya that was not there in existence in the worlds and in Seder Ishtalshlus. Ki'im ub'chinas Shem Havaya Chodosh. It's a new Shem Havaya. Not, God forbid, a new name of God, because obviously it's the same Shem Havaya, but it's a new dimension in Shem Havaya, Shenimshach b'chinas Atzmus Eid Ein Sof, which is drawing from Atzmus Eid Ein Sof, not Eid Ein Sof, not Eid HaMetzumtzum, the diminished Eid, but from Atzmus Eid Ein Sof. U'kamei shekosav b'Matan Torah, like it says by Matan Torah, what do we say right at the beginning of the Ten Commandments? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Anochi Havaya Elokecha. Anochi refers to b'chinas Anochi Misha Anochi. I, the one, the ultimate I, meaning referring to Atzmus Ein b'chinas Atzmus Eid Ein Sof. Shalamayla Mekol Ishtalshlus. That's what Anochi is, like what he says here in Keser compared to the other spheres. There he says it at the level of Ani. Now it's even higher. Anochi. U'nimshach misham liyes Havaya Lekecha. Anochi Havaya Lekecha. So we're not just getting Havaya, we're getting Havaya that's informed by and drawing from Anochi into Havaya Lekecha, Pira Shem Havaya Chodesh Kanal. That's the new Shem Havaya that's coming through mitzvahs. V'nikra Lekecha. So what's the addition of Lekecha? Mipnei shenasa al yotcha. Because like we said before, it comes through Mamala. It comes through Seder Shtalshlus. It travels through the same channels. But it's a completely higher level of energy. Nasa al yotcha. Shenasham tzom amshichim zayidei Torah and mitzvahs. So the kecha. Now we're talking about it's personalized. When you say Anochi Havaya, it's all on God's terms. Elokecha, Havaya Elokecha, your God, because it becomes, I correct myself. I said before because it comes through the channels. He's saying no, because it comes through you, Elokecha, it comes through you, Neshamas Yisrael, because it's the Neshamas Yisrael that are achieving this. They are mamshich through Torah and mitzvahs. So Elokecha is referring Elokech, Elokim Shalcha, because you are the one, you, the Neshamas Yisrael, are doing it through your avodah. I thought he was going to say because it goes through the level of Ishtal, which is also correct, but that's not what he's emphasizing here. Here he's emphasizing that it happens through us Elokecha. It's not happening on its own. It happens through our avodah through Torah and mitzvahs. And with that, he concludes the first mimer of Samach Vav. We concluded the first mimer. Then the page 13. So let's stop here for any questions and a clarification.
So this is why the mitzvahs are higher, and going back to ayin base, that whole discussion, how the mitzvahs are higher, because we are interacting with them to bring down that higher
We
level.
don't need to go to ayin base. He said it all here in Samach.
No, but comparison to Torah,
He's not
you
talking about mitzvahs comparison to Torah here.
uh-huh.
Here it all goes together, Torah and mitzvahs.
So he doesn't make a distinction then at all.
That's not relevant here, no.
Okay, thank you.
The reference to Tosafos with respect to mitzvah tefillin, as you gave an example, Nimshach Tosafos or B'chinas Hamoichin, is he saying that it's an additional light or God Elikus that's added to Moichin because tefillin attaches to the head, or every mitzvah is adding additional light at the level of Moichin?
No, tefillin is connected directly to Moichin. Other mitzvahs connect to other levels of the spheres. Tefillin is shibud haleva amoyach, is the expression. It binds the mind and the heart. And like he said before, since he gave the example of chachma b'mili yudin, so tefillin is connected to moichin, to chachma, but the additional energy that comes through a mitzvah. So listen, children that don't put on tefillin also have a mind, and a human being has a mind even without putting on tefillin. That is, however, the minimal flow. And the mitzvah of tefillin draws down from the moichin l'mayla into the moichin of the person, draws down more energy into moichin.
Yes, thank you. That's what I assumed. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
We learned that,
Any...
we learned that for an Evan or anything, eights or anything, shulchan to exist in this world, it comes from the holy letters, the conduit for the flow of godliness to give existence to anything in this world, or anything in the universe, or anything in creation is through the holy letters of that word itself. I was wondering how that connects to this Yud K Vav K, that everything flows through Yud K Vav K. Is that the letters for Evan and Shulchan are within the big highway of Yud K Vav K, and within that there's
What do you say,
Tosefos.
Eved? You said the word Eved?
Evan.
Evan. Oh, he says in Tanya, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying how
Well, no,
we have
first of all,
these
a few
channels.
things. Basara Mamoris Nivra Elam, the Alter Rebbe brings in Shariach Vamuna, that he used, the Abishter used all 22 letters to create existence, Aleph through Taf. Havaya is a particular structure within the letters, so everything comes from all the letters of the Aleph. That's why you have Evan, like you said. You have Shulchan, you have Melech, salt, or Yehi Aleph Vav Resh. It's not Havaya. But that is the flow that comes in the creative process. Those are, like, you think of it, the tools of the architect that he's using to create. But in addition to that, there's another thing, the 4 stages that all the letters go through, which is Yud K Vav K. That's besides the 22 letters of the alphabet. The 4 stages: Tzimtzum, Yud, Ispashtus, expansion, Vav, transmission, and then the Hey. So even though they are 3 of the 22 letters, but that's a separate role in addition to the general use of all letters to create. If that's what you're asking.
So the letters from Evan, for example, would be coming through the pasha of the yud, and then the spashas of
Yeah,
the hay. It would be
yeah.
coming through those levels to
Yeah, well,
take
very
that.
simple. Everything needs its symptom. So everything goes through its symptom. Then comes the expansion, then comes the transmission, and then comes the final product.
Right. So the way I'm looking at it, and tell me if it's wrong, is that like the Yud K Vav K is like the big super highway of all flow of divinity into creation, and within that super highway, you have Tosefes Or from a mitzvah, and you have Aleph Vase Nun for Evan, and they go through these super highways of condension
Well,
and
it's
condensation
not. I
and
wouldn't put it quite like
justice.
that because very simple. Because Havaya is also connected to Evan. Even the way that God created a stone or created a vegetation on day 3 of creation, for example, he did that through Havaya as well. But it was through the Tzimtzum of Elohim. That's why you don't really hear the word Havaya there. But everything goes through Havaya. The difference between a mitzvah and creation is the minimal flow through Havaya. And the mitzvah adds, the Tosfos are through Havaya. So I don't know if I would use exactly quite that way I would put it. I would use more this example. Havaya is the general way, for example, a projector of light. It's projecting light on a screen. For that projector to project light, it has to go through 4 stages. There's the tzimtzum, the light has to be focused. Then there's the expansion. Then there's the transmission, and then there's the final projection on the screen. But what will the screen show? That will be the letters of Aleph through Tuf. We live in a world that's not broken down just into 4 levels, Yud Kei Vav Kei. We have, like you said, Evan stones. We have birds. We have Daimon, Semeach, Chaim Medaber. We have billions, even trillions probably, of cells, of species. So all that diversity cannot just be created through Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's created through the combination of all the letters, like he says in Shar Yochid V'Amunah, that through these letters, God channeled his energy to create the difference between a bird and a buffalo, for example. Havaya is the way the transmission of the light flows through 4 stages. It's something like the 4 worlds and the 10 spheres. So the 4 worlds exist, and in each one of them, there's 10 spheres. So the 4 worlds actually correspond, by the way, to Yud Kei Vav Kei. Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiyah is Yud Kei Vav Kei. In the spheres themselves, Chachma, Bina, Mides, and Malchus, Zoh and Malchus is also Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the general flow. But the breakdown is Chachma, Bina, Das. That's what he said, B'derech Klal, B'derech Prat. So basically, the letters create the diversity of existence, and Havaya is the way the light transmits in each one of those parts of existence.
But
But
didn't
thank
you
you.
say, oh, I'm sorry. Didn't you say we're bringing down the pre-Simpson energy this way? How can it,
What
it's
are you
still,
saying now?
didn't you say earlier?
Mitzvahs bring a chadash, they bring a higher energy, but through
Yeah.
these channels. But they travel through these channels. That's the whole point. They travel into existence. They don't remain above existence. They come into existence.
And to do that, they have to be condensed, they have to be channeled.
Not condensed, they have to be channeled,
Yeah.
or else it'll blow all the circuits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Any other questions?
The letter Samach doesn't appear in the Seres Memoros. And I was wondering how we understand that.
I would refer you to Sefer Erchim, Chabad, where he talks about letter Samach, same thing Sefer Lekutim. Since it's not really relevant to this discussion here, I would just refer you to those sources where they discuss the details of all the different letters.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to continue to the next mimer? For the record, like an Ayin Beis, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote a short 1-line summary of the beginning of each mimer in Ayin Beis and also in Samach Vav. So if you go back to, if you have the Sefer in front of you, I don't know if we scan that. You look on page 5, the index, the Mafteach, table of contents rather. So for instance, on the first mimer, he writes, Tachlis Bria Se'elmis V'Neshamas. That's all he writes. Now this mimer talks about the ultimate purpose, the purpose of creation of existence and of Neshamas. The second mimer, which we're going to learn now, he sums up, Aliyas de Gan Eden v'habitl be madrege le madrege. the elevations in Gan Eden and the bittul from one level to the other. I'm just pointing it out. Doesn't change much, but it's interesting. Remember, it's not necessarily the whole mimer. The Rebbe emphasizes the beginning of each mimer. In some cases, it's the central theme of the mimer. Sometimes it's more the beginning of each mimer. The Rebbe Friedrich Rebbe wrote that for himself, but obviously also they printed it because it's a benefit to us as well, how he, in a way, just to keep the flow of Samach Vav. I also should mention, if you go to samachvav.com, being that I had already learned Samach Vav in the past, years ago, when it was the centennial of Samach Vav, which was Tafshin Samach Vav, we're talking about now almost, 20 years ago, actually. 20 years ago, yeah. 1905, 2005 is when I wrote up a running summary of the entire Hemshech Samach Vav, which could only help here. If you look at that, it's in English, where I wrote each mimer, and I write which mimer, the summary of that mimer, but mostly the flow. And when questions are asked, where they're answered later. So that's a very useful tool if you like. I also wrote, I believe, 21 essays on the central themes of Samach Vav, again in English. These all can be found at samachvav.com. It's just additional resources and tools to learn Samach Vav with. Obviously, we're learning it here in depth, literally going through every line. There, I didn't do that. There, it's more, like I said, a running summary of the 61 discourses and central themes throughout. 21 themes I chose. So, with that, let's go now to the next mimer. Page 14. This mimer said, the first mimer was the second night of Rosh Hashanah, and this one is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. You'll see Yom Beis Rosh Hashanah Reish Samach Vav. The first one was the second night, meaning the second eve of Rosh Hashanah, and this now second day. So, ready to go? Page 14. The mimer begins another Rosh Hashanah mimer, and now you're going to see the Rebbe Rashab did not answer the questions he asked about Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shachal Yis B'Shabbos. He answers at the end of the Hemshech. Here, however, is going to become questions, and he's going to start answering them at the end of each discourse. So there's the beginning and the end of the whole discourse, the whole 61. Now 61 Maimarim. Now it's going to be more broken down. And here too, for the record, the Rebbe Rashab first wrote the main bulk of the text, and then he added the beginnings and ends. So here's what he says. Let me see. I want to see something. 1 second, please. By the way, if you look at Tafshin 773, you see actually the handwriting of the Friedrich Rebbe, how he listed all the Maimarim and wrote that one-line summary for each Maimar. You actually can see it. This page, if you're interested in looking. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. But regardless, it's just some facsimiles. There you have little copies of the manuscripts of Samach Vav, if you're interested. So let's begin here. The mimer begins. Zeh hayom tchilas masecha zikaron liyom rishon. So this is a prayer that we say in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. Today is the beginning of your creation, the beginning of your action, Maisecha, Zikaron liyom rishon. Commemorating or remembering the first day. B'tzarech lahavin. Asked the Rebbe Rashab, Mahu inyan tchilas masecha. What does it mean, tchilas masecha? And you say the beginning of your maisim, of your actions. The pinish tchilas masecha tchilas dasiyah. The beginning of building something, of creating something. B'tzarech lahavin, Mahu tchila dasiyah. What is the beginning? What do you mean by the beginning? What exactly does it mean when he says the beginning of the creation? V'gam ha'sha'amar zikaron liyem rishon. And also the second half of the phrase, a memory for Yom Rishon of the first day. Tzarich lahaven eze yom hu Yom Rishon asher tchilas asir zikaron liyem zeh. What day exactly is this Yom Rishon? This first day that we say that tchilas masecha, the beginning of your actions, of your creation, is a zikaron, is a memorial or a memory or reminding us of that day. What day is that? Is it the day of, let's say, 25th of Elul when God started creating existence? Bereshis bara Elokim, or is it the day of when Adam and Chava were created, the sixth day of creation? As we'll see, I'll discuss this later. Well, to understand this is a common style in the Maimorim of the Rabbeim, especially the Hamsheichim, the series of Maimorim, that he asks a few questions and then goes back and says, to understand this, we need to preface what we learned till here. And that's the segue of how the Rebbe Rashab flows from the question, from the verse or the prayer or the statement that he begins the Maimer with into the continuing flow of what we had just learned in the previous Maimer. It says, to understand these questions, Sarach al-Havin, Tzarich lahagdim, we have to preface Mashin is barely ill, what was explained earlier, the tachlis b'riyas elam. And this serves as a great benefit because he sums up basically himself what he said till now. That the purpose of creation of the worlds, the tachlis hakavani b'ridas haneshama beguf, and the purpose of the soul descending below, hu lahamshich teisrus eris al yidei Torah mitzvos, to draw down abundant, additional energies through Torah and mitzvahs, and from where? Mebchinas primius va'atzmus Eid Ein Sof, from the inner and core of Eid Ein Sof, like we learned, Ad sheyegili Eid Ein Sof lamata, to the point that you draw down all the way down below into Tachtenim, v'zeu breishis b'shul Yisrael u'b'shul HaTorah canal. And that's what it means when we say breishis. Breis reishis, for Yisrael and for Torah, because they are the ones that draw it down, like he explained on the end of the paragraph on page 11. Okay, that sums up very, very briefly what we learned. And now the Rebbe Rashab is going to start developing this. And here's what he says. Ulahav b'teisvus biur, and to understand with additional explanation, inyan hamshach v'teisvus eir shenasim al-yedei Torah mitzvos. He's coming now to explain what is this hamshach and the additional energies that we achieve and we generate through Torah mitzvos. He wants to further explain this. And as you will see, Samach Vav is very much around what our Avodah ultimately accomplishes. It's a big central theme of Samach Vav. The Avodah what we accomplish with our Avodah. If Ayin Bey's main focus is interface between divine and existence, Samach Vav's main focus is Avodah b'koyachad, the Avodah generated from below that draws down the energies from above. So he says, Yesh lahagdim, in order to understand this additional explanation in this topic, we need to preface something. Yesh lahagdim chila masha kosav, we have to begin with a verse. The verse says, I believe this is in Yeshaya, Samach Dal Gimel, as he says in footnote 5, Ayin lo yirasa elikim zulasecha, yasa lemechakale. Somewhat of a cryptic verse, which says, Ayin lo yirasa, no eye has, talking about la'ased love. We're talking about levels of the divine, as we'll explain, that are unprecedented. Ayin lo yirasa elikim zulasecha. No eye has seen, except you, God, has seen God, meaning the ultimate levels of godliness. Yaseh lemechakale. And that's the most cryptic. What does Yaseh lemechakale mean? That he does it for those that wait for him. In other words, he's talking about a level that is unseeable initially, but then God provides it to those mechake. Mechake we'll soon see. Mechake has many meanings. Literally in Hebrew, mechake means to wait. So basically, God has prepared a very high level of divine energy that no one has ever seen but he'll prepare it for those that await him. Now, what that wait is, we're going to discuss. That's the pasuk in Yeshaya. V'amar Razal, Brochis, Daf Lamed Daled Amid Beis, the Rebbe Rashab himself cites the Gemara. The Gemara on this pasuk asks, "My ayin leirasa. What is this thing called ayin leirasa? What level is this? That the eye that has not seen. What level are we talking about? There's ayin rasa, means the eye that sees what it's able to, what's visible to the eye. What is this level that's unseeable? Amar Rab Shimon bar Nachman, I think. Rab Shimon bar. I have to look it up. I think that's it. He answers that this level is called Eden, Ze Eden. Shaloi Sholta Ayin Kol Beria. It's talking about Eden in the Torah, right in the beginning. We talked before about the Garden of Eden. So what's Eden exactly? Gan Eden. So he says Ada is a level that no creature has ever been able to see. Now, what that means needs explanation, obvious also, because Adam and Chava were placed. The Rebbe said, "Vayita Gan be'Eden." He planted a garden in Eden. That's why it's called Gan Eden. But the garden is where they were. What exactly is Eden? So he's saying, Rab Shimon, that Lo sholta ayin kol beria. Kol beria means that no eye of any creature has ever seen Eden. Shema Tamer Adam Arishin Heichen Hoya began. So you could say, 1 second, the Gemara continues. And in case you're going to say, what do you mean? Adam Arishin Heichen Hoya began. Where was he in the garden? He was in the Garden of Eden. Im Tamer Zehu Gan Zehu Eden. So down below they say the lashon of the Gemara is a little different. Basically, so you could say maybe the Gan is the same thing like Eden. That when Adam was placed in the garden, that's like he was placed in Eden. You can't say that, says the Gemara. Like Kishu Eimen V'Nor Yotzim Eden. So you would think maybe Gan and Eden are synonymous, but then when he says Nor Yotzim Eden, that a river flowed from Eden, Lahashkis Sagan, to irrigate the garden, have a Gan L'chud ve'Eden L'chud. That clearly indicates that Gan and Eden are not the same level. So Adam and Chava, they were in the Gan, and the Gan was irrigated by a thing, a river that flowed from Eden. So what is Eden? Says Rab Shimon bar Nachman that it's a level that is not seen by anyone. It's a dimension, a higher dimension. He's of course going to explain what is that dimension. But
what does L'chud mean?
L'chud means they're two separate things. That Gan and Eden are, it's a less language in Gemara. Gan L'chud, the garden is one level, and Eden is another. They're separate. You would think maybe you could say the Gan and Eden are one. That's what he says. Shema Tem. Im Tem Zeu Gan Zeu Eden. That Gan and Eden are synonymous. The answer is no. By saying that the river flowed from Eden to irrigate the garden, the Gan means that Eden and Gan are two separate entities. Very practical. It's not nothing mystical right now. He's going to explain this. Yeah, that's basic Gemara. Okay. So the Rebbe Rashab is now beginning to explain what he's going to explain, what this level is of this ayin leirasa, and this is going to be very fundamental in the whole development of Samach Vav, as we shall see. So va'inyanhu. Okay, that's the Gemara. Now, what does this mean? What at the end of the day, what is Eden? What is this level? And then also, what is Gan? So it says va'inyanhu. Remember that he already began in the previous Maimer talking about Gan Eden. He said that God created Vayita Hashem Elikim Gan Be'eden, that it comes from the level of Havaya, it's higher than the rest of existence. And then Adam and Chava, the human being, of the Lashama, they're coming to develop this garden. So the Garden of Eden is actually symbolic and like a microcosm of Avodas Hashem in this world. God created a garden and he wants us to develop this garden into something much greater. That's why he also brought Yizbu Atse Havaya, that we take the trees that God planted in Gan Eden and we make them something more. That's the taste for Seiris. So this isn't just completely a new topic. He's developing now this idea of Gan Eden, but we have to understand what exactly is Eden and what exactly is Gan, as he's going to explain. Va'inyanhu. The Li is the Began Eden Ksiv. Being that Gan Eden, about Gan Eden, it says, like we learned in the previous Maimer, Vayita Hashem Elikim Gan Be'eden. Bekedem. That God planted a garden in a place called Eden, Bekedem. Bekedem also means, from the outset, we say Began Eden Bekedem. The primordial or the prime or the original Gan Eden. Harimashma Lechera. From that verse, it seems apparently the Gan Ve'eden Hu Inyan Echad. Not like the Gemara says, because it says he planted a garden in Eden. So from that, it apparently seems like this one thing. There was a place called Eden, and he planted a garden in it. Ma'achash Gan Hu Be'eden. Being that the garden is in Eden, nevertheless, the Gemara says, "Hine memasher kosav, v'nor yotzim me'eden lahashkes hasagan." However, the other verse that says a river flowed from Eden to irrigate the garden, moving the gan lachud. There, it's understood that the gan is a separate entity. In other words, there's like two things going on here. There's a garden in Eden, but then there's another statement that there's a river flowing from Eden into the garden. So you have to say that Eden has two dimensions to it. One is as it's separate and a river flows from there. A second is that in the Eden itself, he planted the garden. That's what he's emphasizing here. Dihine, because now Eden, Yedua, now he's going to explain what is Eden. So it's known, Shehu b'chinas hataynu ga'atzmi u'poshet sheba'atzmus Eid Sof. So the word Eden, like we say in Hebrew, Eden comes connected to the word tainug. I mean, I don't know if it's connected to the word adin when you say something is sweet. Maybe. I don't think it's the same root necessarily. Maybe it is. But Eden is connected. What he's saying here is the level of the core and seamless pleasure in Atzmus Eid Sof. Basically, the level we spoke about earlier, the Tshuka, Shuka V'Amudei Sheish, and the Taiva, the Sava Kodesh Baruch Hu. So let me elaborate a bit what this means, but we're going to learn about it at length in the next Maimarim. We talked, if you remember, about Taiva and Tshuka, that Atzmus is higher than any form of reason or structure. The only word we use, just to be able to create a language that we can understand, is pleasure, desire. Obviously, you can't even define God by those words, but it's something that gives us a little sense of something that is deeper than a rational structure of things. When you love, you desire and love your children, for example, Ava Atzmis, you don't say this is Ava al Pitam V'das. It's not limited to logic. It's not like, okay, one day I love them because they did something nice, and the next day that love goes away. It's Ava Atzmis. When a father, later we're going to use the mashal from the Magid, when a parent is enjoying their children, we're coming to Chanukah, just the pleasure of being with your children. No, nothing particular. You're not doing anything particular. You're not learning with them. You're not discussing. You're not even praising or saying, oh, wow, my child did this, my child. Just the mere thing is a small taste of what we call Tainuk Poshet. It's just a seamless type of pleasure that comes from the depths of your soul. You can't quite quantify it. It's just there. Now, you can explain it biologically because it's your child, an extension of you. But the point is, it's not a business transaction, for example. Many interactions we have are based on a certain give and take. When you say something as atzmi and poshet, you're talking about something not defined by a particular need, like we learned earlier. It's not because of a need. God doesn't need anything. Now, obviously, this is all lahavdil elef avdolas, because you can't really compare, but we need some language. So Hashem said, I will give you language. I will give you pleasure in your life with which you can come to understand a bit of what I am like, so to speak, beyond the structure of Seder Shtalshlus. So as we're going to see, Tainug is connected to the highest levels of Atik, Keser, Eden. So he's now going to explain what exactly is Eden in this context. So he's using, this is pure Chassidus Chabad language. Tainug HaPoshet, Tainug HaAtzmi, or Poshet Sheba Atzmus Ein Sof. We'll learn more about it. I'm not really, I don't want to go into too much detail because the Rebbe Rashab is going to explain what this Atzmus Tainug is. But I gave an example just so we have some handle on what we're discussing here. Now, what is this called in Kabbalah? He's going to bring now something from Emek HaMelech. If you remember, Emek HaMelech was written by a Makubal. Now, Meir Baghdad, he was a student of Yisrael Sarug, who was a student of the Arizal. But in Lekutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe says this next expression that we're going to read is not brought in Eitz Chaim, meaning in the Kisrei Arizal through the Rab Chaim Vital. This is exclusively in the Chassidus, in the Kabbalah that came from another student of the Arizal, Rabbi Yisrael Sarug. We spoke about it. So he says, Hanikra, this level of Tainig Atzmi Poshet is called Shashuye Hamelech Batzmuse. Literally, the internal plaything, you could say, no, the delights, the eternal delights of the king when he's all alone. So it's using an example of a physical king. Now we know that the king is the way he presents himself to the public, to his subjects, or to his ministers. But then there are things that the king enjoys all on his own. It's not in connection to anyone else. So in Kabbalah, they use this as a mashal, Shashua Melech Batzmuse. That's something that is a delight for the king on his own. Now, obviously, you could speak about it in a very, very crass way, that a king enjoys certain games, for example. You have kings throughout history that has had certain hobbies. Some of them were actually ridiculous. Some of them were more sublime. But obviously, when we're talking about Hashem, we're not talking about nonsense, God forbid. We're not talking about something trivial. But it means something that is completely his own. For example, we're going to learn Torah in the Pasuk. It says, Shashuyim lefanov. There are delights before him. Why? Because Torah is not God creating existence. Torah is God's own wisdom and will. So Torah on its own is something that God himself relates to. Existence is already the godliness as it manifests into creating something so-called outside of himself. Not outside literally, but meaning a separate consciousness. Torah is not. So it's essentially the king as he is with himself, the things that he does that only he relates to. So of course, Atzmus, real Atzmus, Bilti Mitzias Nimtza is beyond that as well. But nevertheless, there is an entity that we call Shashuya Melech Batzmuse, which is identifying in language of Chassidus, Tainug HaAtzmi Poshet Sheba Atzmus Ein Sof, Shehu B'chinas Einag Nelam. This is a concealed pleasure or desire, this pleasure, Shalamayla B'chinas Hamshacha V'Gili. What it ultimately means it's before any form of transmission and revelation. I would say further, it precedes any form of expression. So when we talk about expression, you're already talking about some form of Gili and Hamshacha. Remember I gave the example that there are things that are in our Etzem HaNefesh that we can't even express. Not in words, not in metaphor, not even in sounds altogether. It's just who you are. And it's not even conscious. Like when I asked the question, what does life feel like? Or what is your left leg doing right now? Before I asked that question, you weren't conscious of your left leg, even though it's there. Well, when the person is on that level, we're talking about pure etzem, you're talking about a state that is not being expressed, that's not consciousness, it's not awareness, there's no level of gili. So the language Kabbalah Chassidus uses to explain it is this tainug atzmi upashit. There is going to be tangible tainug. We'll learn that there are tangible tainug that is expressed. You could have pleasure in something. You could actually, let's say, a person is playing with their child. There it is expressed. But there's a tainug that transcends expression, that precedes expression. It's just there within you, even if you're not even aware of it. That's what he calls Einig Nel Shalamayim B'chinas Hamshacha V'Gili. Shal Zen Nemar Ayin Lo Rasa. That's what the pasuk that he began with on the beginning of the paragraph, the eye that does not see. Why doesn't it see? Not because it's invisible, it's because it's beyond expression. That's what it means. It's expressionless. It's beyond expression. Shaloi sholta b'ayin kol beria. That no eye of any creature can see it. Does not, sholta means, that's not visible, basically, to any eye. Afila Moshe v'ha'ovis. Even the highest neshamas like Moshe and the patriarchs and the ovis. And even Adam addition. So Yitzir Kapav Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who was an actual handiwork made by God himself. He shaped Adam. He took the dust from the earth, shaped it into a body, and then breathed into it the soul of man, the soul. So even Adam himself, even the way even the way he's pre-chet, Eitz Hadas, he didn't eat from the tree of knowledge yet. He was the ultimate, the quintessential, perfect human being. There was no sin yet even. Even that level, they cannot perceive this level. Not because there's a fault in Adam, because we're not talking about a sin. We're not talking about doing something that doesn't let you see it. It's because it's fundamentally a level that's completely beyond visibility. So when will it be revealed? So the Rebbe Rashab says, Ki'im la'asid, in the future, b'tchias hamesim, which means not in the beginning of a Mashiach comes, but later stage. After the resurrection, b'tchias hamesim, yeh gili b'chinas madrega zu. Then we will have this gili of this level. So let me stop a moment and let me just elaborate a bit on this. The temptation right away, for those of us that are familiar with quantum mechanics, is to compare it to quantum. Why? Because that's exactly what they came to discover, the scientists. That there are things that are invisible, not because we can't measure them, or because we are unable, we don't have the instruments. It's not because of lack of data, basically. Many times you could say, you know what? You can't see something because we don't have yet the instruments to see it. But build a stronger microscope and you'll be able to see it. Or a stronger telescope, or whatever instrument. But they came to discover, no, that there's a fundamental state, they call the quantum state, that is, even if you have all the data, it's not deterministic, it's not defined. Not because of lack of information. Like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that on that quantum level, you cannot measure the velocity and the position of a subatomic particle at the same time. Not because of lack of information or lack of instrument, because it's fundamentally what some call a state of probability, a state of indeterminism. Once you observe it and measure it, then it takes on shape and form. I don't want to elaborate so much, but those of you familiar with it know that it's not just a matter of, there are, like we see a table, a chair, and there's some things you don't see, but potentially you could see it. No, we're talking about something that's just beyond the grasp that we cannot fathom. There are actually quite a few writers and authors and theorists, not necessarily even in Judaism, that compare it to the mystical experience of superconscious states of higher consciousness and awareness, what some would call the subconscious, we'll call it superconscious, that is just beyond human ability for us to grasp. And you have to find other ways to experience it. Now, in Chassidus Kabbalah, there's an expression, les machshavet tfisa beklal. No thought can grasp God in any possible way. Ki'im hitofes b'ru'usa deliba. The only way you can grasp it is with the desire of the heart. It's like when you say, I have no words to express my love. So liba lepuma legalia is an expression that a person's innermost intimate feelings in the heart cannot be expressed in the lips. Language is just inadequate. It's not because you don't have enough words, and if you had a better vocabulary or better language, you'd be able to express it. It's just inexpressible. Some things just don't have, like we spoke about, kalim are measured, like a mamala kalam, and a keli is measured with the oir. So letters on a page express certain ideas. What about when you say, I don't have the words to express it? What are you really saying? You're not saying, I don't have words and I'll find them tomorrow. There's such depth and so intimate and so intense that words are just inadequate. Just using an example. So what he's introducing here, and I'm elaborating because it's so, for most of us, this is unfamiliar territory, unless you're familiar with quantum a bit, or with mystical experiences. This is like the tangible world doesn't relate to this, because everything in this world that we have is somewhat measurable, either with our senses or with our intuition. You see it, you hear it, you taste, touch, and smell. So someone says, so where is God? You can't see, you can't hear, you can't taste or touch and smell. The answer is that God is not bound by senses. You also can't see love, and you can't see ideas with your physical eyes. And yet we know they're there. So you need different type of tools. But then there are things that even those tools don't work. When you're talking about atzmos, you're talking about a level that there are no tools, because every tool is inadequate to experience etzem. So then you'll say, so how do we talk about it then? How do we even begin to go? Because Hashem created us. And the etzem gave us some type of sense. You could talk about your etzem nefesh, the deepest parts of you. It still may not be quite like atzmos, obviously, but it helps through extrapolation, through process of elimination. You could say, you know what? When I wrote the chapter, Torah Meaningful Life, chapter on God, I did exactly that. I went through like step-by-step process. What is reality? Someone asks you, what is reality? So many people will answer, whatever I see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, that's reality. But we all know that's not correct. There are a lot of things you don't see or hear, and the other senses can't grasp, and that we know are reality. I mentioned love, truth, the soul. These are all real entities, ideas. Has anyone ever seen 2 + 2 = 4? You haven't seen it, but your mind comprehends it. Okay, so reality is not just physical senses, there's also other senses. We'll call it suprasensory. Intuition, yediyas hashlila, you negate and say, you know what? I don't see it, but I can see, for example, sonar bounces off, let's say, a submarine under the water. You don't see the submarine, but you see the reflection, so to speak. You see the shape of the image through sonar. It's like a sonogram. You have CAT scans, you have X-rays. Okay, but those are still instruments that measure. They're just measuring things that the naked eye can't see. Keep going up level by level. There comes a point you can't even find an instrument. So you have to start imagining it. The concept of it, the concept of the concept. When you talk about atzmos, as we discussed in previous classes, Metzias built to Metzias Nimtza means there's nothing. There's no tool and no instrument, no words that can describe. And yet atzmos wanted us to be able to talk about atzmos, with the qualification that whatever you say is always going to be somewhat inadequate, which is fine. But at least we're discussing something that's beyond the reality that we are so accustomed to. And that is itself already an achievement, because material human beings begin by measuring things. Remember the example I gave the students that came to see me from the yeshiva here. How many apples can fit on this table? And then I asked them, how many ideas fit into your brain? And right away you start saying, 1 second. The brain is smaller than the table. And yet the brain has many more ideas than all the apples that you can fit on this table, because ideas are not measured by conventional time and space. And a brain doesn't function like a table. A brain is neurons. You just have to start thinking in other type of language. You talk about digital ideas. Digital. How things turn into zeros and ones, and we can transmit it right now. You're watching me give a class where you're not sitting in my presence, and yet you see me, you hear me exactly as I am. Explain that. How did my image and my voice turn into some digital form of zeros and ones, transmitted to you literally almost simultaneously, and turn back into an image and sound that you hear? That's exactly my voice and my face. So however you understand it or don't understand it, it's reality. It is happening. So we see from that there's a whole sublime, invisible world. And that I'm not even talking about etzem now. Imagine you keep going down this rabbit hole, or you keep going deeper and deeper. So Chassidus, and here the Rebbe Rashab is starting to introduce us to understand a little of what is this etzem like. Now I'll tell you right now, this is a lifetime journey, and many lifetimes. As much as we talk about it right now, I am not going to suggest that you're suddenly going to get it. I still struggle with it, to be very honest, because we live with such tangible creatures in definable world. You have to constantly work at perceiving realities that are beyond definition. It doesn't come easy. What happens is over time, you get accustomed to it, so you begin to feel comfortable speaking that way. But that's the ikar. What's the main thing in your life? Your soul or your body? Now, the body is the thing that you most relate to. You can measure your body, you know what your body feels like, you see it. Your soul you don't see. And yet the the ikar of you is your soul, not your body. Your body is just a hollow shell. And yet that hollow shell is so predominant in our existence, our consciousness. The things you see, you hear. These are the things that stimulate our senses and dominate our lives. You learn Chassidus, you start tasting, there's a reality beyond us. I don't know if I've ever seen this, but one of the reasons I believe we cover our eyes when we say Shema is precisely for that reason. We're closing our eyes to say, I want to experience Hashma Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad is not visible to the naked eye, and the contrary. The more you look around the world, the more it conceals the true internal unity of the divine. So the point is, life is in a way a struggle between the sensory and the suprasensory, and then the suprasensory. So my point is that even if this eludes you, and you don't fully wrap your head around it, don't feel frustrated. We're all in the same boat. We're all physical beings, and spirituality is hard to grasp. However, the more you talk about it, and the more you find examples, and that's what Chassidus Chabad especially does, I'm giving examples, whether it's examples from quantum or examples from the Etzem HaNefesh of how you love your child and so on. The more you do that, the more you become comfortable with the invisible, basically, or even beyond the invisible. The more you become comfortable with realities that are not defined by the usual structures. And that's really what, in many ways, is ultimately experiencing godliness. You're introducing into your life something beyond time and space, beyond definition. How far you can go, that all comes down to the more work you do, the more you get accustomed to it. When I think of Chassidim that sat and davened for 4 or 5 hours under a talus on Shabbos, or even daily, I feel that they went to those places. They traveled there in their minds and their hearts, and they were basically in the Garden of Eden. They went into a place that is beyond definition. When you stand in front of, just to use a simple example, in front of an awesome natural beauty in nature, right? And you stand in awe, you're completely blown away. Or by a song that mesmerizes you and captivates you and transports you to another time and place. And I'm not talking about that you're thinking how you're experiencing it. You're so in the moment, in the zone, you don't even experience it. These are somewhat a taste, a little, of experience something that is not defined, that's not expressed. And someone will say, so how did you experience it? Say, I don't know. I just got absorbed in the moment. I got absorbed in the thing I was reading, and I became one with it. And I'm not even thinking about myself and my ego and my needs. I'm completely, the subject and object become one. Everyone, I'm sure, here has had some experience like that. It's a magical moment, to be very honest. It's a moment where you get dissolved into a reality beyond yourself. There is moments like that. And that's what Chassidus calls Tainaga Atzmi HaPoshet L'mayla Mikol Gili V'Gili V'Hamshacha, like he calls it. That's what it's, and that's the reality that for us, it's a novelty. It's very hard to live there all the time. But those that learn Chassidus and absorb it and become more and more one with it, that's the place they live. That's their home. And the material world becomes the strange creature. And you look around, what is this material world that I see? Imagine coming to a place like that, where the physical world becomes this, what Chassidus calls elikus b'pshitus, elam is b'schachus. Elikus, that's a given. And elamis is this novelty. Like a child just coming out of its mother's womb and says, what kind of world have I entered into? What is this world exactly? But for most of us, it's the other way around. It's elamis b'pshitus, existence, as we see it, as we hear it, as we taste, touch, and smell, and even with our other tools, is our reality. And the divine, elikus, is bischachus. That's like a novelty. We have to figure out what is that reality and how do I relate to it and so on and so forth. So it's somewhat of a little primer introduction to obviously a critical piece in all of Chassidus, a critical idea, but he's now actually starting to spell it out, and he's calling it Aiden, Ayin Loy Rasa. We will be able to experience it. How? That's part of what Avodah does. Like the whole Chiddush, that our Avodah Sa'adam down below refines us to the point where we can then draw down energy that initially was not able, that's why you needed a tzimtzum, could not come down into this world without a tzimtzum. But when we transform the tzimtzum, by transforming ourselves and we become more sublime, we become kelim to these higher levels. Like he said earlier, that at 40 years, you begin to appreciate Adaita Derabba, what your teacher really taught, the etzem of his ideas. Whereas before that, you only have a reflection or a limited flow of them. So we'll talk, of course, much more about this. This is not just the beginning, but I wanted to just enter that zone, and I'll stop here for any questions.
So the no eye can see it, right? And that no thought can grasp him. But in Lassi Lava, we're going to be able to, from my flesh, we'll be able to perceive it.
Well, right now we're talking about it. So that means there's something, you can have a sense of it now.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand what Lassid Love is. Also, there's no magic that's going to happen then. It's when a human being refines their material self to the extent that it becomes a transparent channel for these true reality. The question is, what is reality? If this is reality, that which we don't see, then it's just up to us to acclimate ourselves and ultimately figure out how to become so refined that we could experience it. That's the process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sure there's plenty. Yeah.
I was just going to say this is a bomb, a solve for what's happened today. This is really the only thing, the only way to really push back against any of this awful horror that's going on in the world right now with the Jewish people.
Yeah, and even that is hard to be consoled because you wonder why, how would God allow this, you know?
It's a total mystery, and I don't know.
Yep.
We're not allowed to ask why, are we?
You can ask why. You're not going to get an answer necessarily.
Well, we can't complain, right? Like when Moshe Rabbeinu saw
No,
the
we
death
can.
of the
We can. We are, God is secure enough. You can say to him, Ad Mosai, and how and why. You can say that. You're not going to get an answer why, but you definitely can have a dialogue with Hashem. We're allowed to cry. We're allowed to, you know. Moshe Rabbeinu ultimately, yes, he did say, Lama hireisa lama zeh, why are you doing evil to these people? And first God said to him, you're challenging me like the patriarchs did. And then he rewarded him. He told him, Shmi Havaya, I will reveal to you the name of Havaya that I did not reveal to them. It's a bigger discussion. It's not for here right now. That's another discussion about whether we are allowed to challenge or argue or complain to God. That doesn't take away our responsibility and doesn't take away our amunah. On the contrary, you could say to God, I believe in you and your goodness, and don't do it for me, do it for you. We say it in Tehillim, we say it by Yisker, that why are you allowing Loma Yemer Goyim Ayel Lekechem? Why are you allowing Goyim to say, where is your God? How has he forsaken you? So these are strong statements, but it's not for, I don't want to go into that right now. That's, as I said, deserves its own discussion. I'll do that tonight. In my life, I'll discuss it.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to derail you. I was just following up on Robin's point.
No, I understand. It's on our minds. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it doesn't deserve. I said I'll just do it a little later. That's all.
I mean, I think it's if you're going to draw a connection to what we just learned in Samach, I mean, you can say that we can't see how God operates, and that's part of the mystery. That there must be a reason that's beyond us. At least right now, it's beyond us, and that's part of Ayin Lo Rasa.
Yeah, I saw you posted Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Correct. It slipped my mind. That's who it is. Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop here. Are there any other questions on what we learned today?
Oh no, I was looking at the chats. There aren't.
Does anybody have any questions on what we learned? What we just finished here? Okay, we're at the bottom, close to the bottom of page 14. Second mimer. We've gotten to second mimer. Samach Vov. I'm gonna stop.
I just wanted to thank everybody for donating to the Hanukkah campaign.
Yes, thank you as well, from me as well, from all of us. And happy Hanukkah. Tonight's Hanukkah, yeah. We're going to start posting it. We're going to start posting it. So I'm going to stop here.